This here is the Monkey Box. So it's a stringed instrument with some motorized motors that spin and pluck guitar strings inside. I just went to a cigar store and asked if they had empty boxes, and they gave me a bunch. So this is the one I chose to use for this. The artwork is from this promotional Corbis book. It's got a bunch of cool stuff in there, so I chose something I liked and cut it out, put it on top. Little leopard in the front there, and the inside unfortunately is warped. I used too much glue, so if I do this again, I'm gonna make sure to pay attention to that. So as you can see, you can hit the buttons on the side, and when it's actually turned on, you can hear the strings inside being plucked by the little motors. The little plucking mechanisms on the motors are some of these little gears. I've had a pack of these for a while, and I've simply wrapped a little zip tie around each of them and snipped the zip tie off really close to the base and put some hot glue on it, just kind of to make sure it stays put. But even without the hot glue, I did some tests and the suckers weren't moving anywhere. I'm gonna do an experiment with the next batch and try some other plucking mechanisms. So I've got each of the motors connected to this circuit inside, and the circuit's this little kit that I got for a different project, but I applied it to this. It has this variable speed control, so as you can see, each of the motors can go super duper slow, and they can crank up to a really high speed. And these strings are just standard guitar, acoustic guitar strings. They're the lowest gauges on the guitar, so it's an E, A, G, and a D. I think I got that right. And they go through tiny holes I've drilled in the back, and they're connected to tuning mechanisms here that I installed. That means that each of the strings are tunable. Well, tunable in quotes, because this thing doesn't necessarily hold a steady note when you play it, but that's the charm of it. So, for example, take this thing way down. Speed it up. So the strings, in order to resonate, actually are going across this little bar here. This is actually a piece of material, I think it's bone, I'll double check, but it's from, if you go online and look up websites for people who build their own guitars, they sell these. This is what's on a bridge of any other acoustical guitar. It just gives the strings a nice hard surface to run against. Where do you think the other strings are? So this is kind of the same idea for that bar. So each of the motors is being held onto just this piece of, well, it was trash. I have a bunch of foam that was used for packaging, and I used foam here to keep the vibrations from the motors from traveling through the wood of this too much when they're spinning. Because if you can see, I've actually got a piezo microphone that is connected to the back here, and I can plug an instrument cable in here and get an audio out signal. And I didn't want this microphone back here to pick up all the vibrations of the motors. And you can see I don't necessarily have a better solution for attaching the motors right now than just this heavy gauge copper wire that's kind of holding them in place. And this allows me to kind of push them and tweak them into different positions. Maybe in the future I'll be able to actually print some parts, but that's further down the line. So the battery pack here is obviously what's powering the motors through this little speed control board. What else? So the front panel here is just it's my least favorite part of this box. You can tell that the buttons are kind of all wonky. This is just a thin piece of I think it's aluminum, maybe. I got it from a hobby store a while ago, and I just cut it to the size I need. If I make another one of these, I'm obviously going to use a stronger material here and find a better way of attaching it to the box. So that's pretty much the basics of how this thing was put together. I hope that's interesting if you've watched this video, and I'll definitely make some additional videos where I use this in a musical context and where I show some of the neat things you can do by plugging it in and running it through different effects. Thanks.